Hello, beautiful soul. My name is Mara. I'm a psychic intuitive tarot and oracle reader, and I welcome you to the third class in my tarot course. We are continuing our deep dive into the major arcana by examining the magician. So grab your notebooks, grab your magician card, and let's dive into today's lesson. So let's start off with the archetype of the magician. At its core, the magician archetype is a catalyst for change. They are people that create new outcomes, new pathways. Other names for this archetype would be the visionary, the medicine man or woman, the inventor, and the catalyst. This archetype seeks out transformation and change. They are uncomfortable in the planning stage. They don't like to stay there for long. They also feel uncomfortable in the midst of small talk. They prefer to engage in stimulating conversations, things that really invoke thoughts and deep thoughts and really, exploring life's big questions. The magician provokes you. It causes you to step outside of your comfort zone and expand beyond your limits. This archetype, like many things in life, has both a healing side as well as a toxic one. When toxic, the magician can appear to be manipulative, controlling, self-serving, a liar. They can be ego-driven, somebody who is doing things out of the sake of having power and control in a situation. When healing, they are productive, assisting, they are in their creative flow, they are a force of change, they really uplift and support others. For example, the magician could either be the cult leader, or it could be the therapist that assists a cult survivor in their recovery. A common outlook of the magician is a savior, somebody who goes through many trials and tribulations, many obstacles in their personal life to become a really solid space and a guiding light for others. Think Aang from Avatar and Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings. Overall, magicians are centered around power. Whether they use that power for good or for evil will highly depend on their life's path, or when you're doing a reading, the surrounding cards. The magician is wise, disciplined, perceptive, and convincing. They can either be arrogant, obsessive, and selfish, or transformative, compassionate, and selfless. So now that you understand the archetype of the magician, let's move into the visual evolution of this card. The magician is one of those cards that has really changed throughout the development of tarot. It started out very differently than it is now, and that is thanks to the Golden Dawn era. So starting off with the Visconti Sforza deck, you can see here that this magician is portrayed as a snake oil salesman. This is somebody who is sitting at his little table of tricks and scams, and he's ready to get your money, to trick you out of your money, to be that convincing, ego-driven magician that we see in the archetype. So here in the Tarot de Marseille, you can see that he is still depicted as a trickster of sorts, the scam artist, a snake oil salesman. But I would also add that his hat does kind of resemble a limniscate, the infinity symbol that we do start to see in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck interpretation of this card. Now here in the Grand Italia, you do see that things are a little bit more magical. They take a turn to be a little bit more esoteric, and you do see that in the cloth on his table, there's some astrological and other occult symbols there. You can also see that he's holding a wand that he's controlling this little man with. He's also got this big pointy wizard or witch's hat on. And this was definitely influenced by the turn of history in tarot, where tarot really started to see a big occult influence. In the Oswald Worth Tarot, you can see that he's got all four suits, the swords, pentacles, and the wands and the cups on his table, as well as still having that hat shape, the limniscate, the infinity symbol. And we also see the addition of this little rose underneath him, which does, kind of lead into the Rider-Waite-Smith, where there are lots of flowers surrounding the magician. Now we reach the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and here you can see, like I said, the flowers that surround him. You've got both white lilies and red roses. He has an Ouroboros belt, as well as the infinity symbol above his head, and a double-edged wand that he is holding up to the sky. You can also see the elements being represented in the four suits, the cups, pentacles, wands, and swords. You can also find the little carvings on the front of his altar to be reminiscent of the elements as well. So now that you understand the visual history and evolution of this card, how it transformed from, this snake oil salesman into this magical magician that casts spells, let's go ahead and dive into the divinatory meaning and how that has evolved over time as well. In Dumalay, this card was labeled the Mountebank. The V describes this card as the Hebrew letter Aleph, the Magus, the juggler, being mind, man, or God, unity, the mother of numbers, and the first substance. Mathers describes it as the juggler or magician, dexterity, willpower. The Golden Dawn describes this card as the Magus of Power, the magician or juggler. Skill, wisdom, adaptation, and cunning, always depending on the cards around it, and whether or not it's reversed. Waite describes the card as the magician, skill, diplomacy, and subtlety, snares of enemies, and if male, the inquirer. So now that you understand how this card has really been developed and formed throughout Tarot's history, let's dive into some symbolism, starting with numerology. Number 1 represents the energy of creation. It is aggressive and straightforward. It pushes past obstacles to get to its goal. So number 1 is very purposeful and very determined. It represents leadership, stubbornness, courage, independence, ambition, and action. Number 1 is a very life-giving energy, and it does mark the beginning. So you do receive a really beautiful sense of vitality and zest for life. So now understanding the numerology of number 1, let's dive into the symbolism of this card. So starting off with the background of this card, we do see that it is yellow, and that represents vitality, hopefulness, optimism, energy, inspiration, imagination, illumination, and readiness. The limniscate or infinity symbol represents the boundless nature of the universe. It reminds us that we are always growing and transforming, that renewal is readily available to us when we choose it. So while the magician is number 1, the first encounter on the fool's journey, and a symbol of beginnings, the limniscate indicates higher wisdom, that he may know more than he lets on. In essence, we are humans with lots of higher knowledge available to us. Moving on to his clothing, we see he is portrayed in a white gown and a red robe. The white equals purity, innocence, balance, and faith, while the red equals passion, power, importance, and strength. These two colors represented in his clothing lets us know that he is cloaked with these qualities. We also see that he has an Ouroboros belt, which is a symbol of the universe's cyclical nature. Life, death, and rebirth. It represents unity of all things and the constant renewal of energy. In this symbol, we find that all things are part of a whole. Both the material and spiritual sides of living are connected. This, alongside the limniscate, is another symbol of eternity and infinity. So now looking at his posture, specifically the positioning of his hands, his arms, we do see a bit of this as above, so below posture, an idea that comes from astrology. It means that what happens on Earth is directly related to and even controlled by the cosmos. The right hand reaches up for higher knowledge, while the left hand commands it downward to bring forth into reality. The wand that he holds in his right hand represents duality. Being double-headed, it is a symbol of unification of opposites, which can also be found in the color of it. It is a symbol of power, magic, creation, and wisdom. Moving on, let's take a look at the red roses and white lilies. These flowers have been very significant and popular symbols throughout history. Red roses symbolize passion, emotions, love, and devotion, which are all qualities that you really want to have when growing or creating something. The white lilies symbolize purity, birth, death, innocence, and manifestation through divine assistance. So now let's take a look at the table. Representing the tools that we have to our advantage, we see all four suits are present, meaning that we have all four elements available to us. The sword would represent air, an active energy, ideas, intellect, wisdom, and force. Wands, another active energy, would represent fire, passion, movement, willpower, and synergy. Cups are a receptive energy that represent water, fluidity, love, empathy, emotion, perception, and intuition. And the pentacle here is another receptive energy that symbolizes earth, material resources, diligence, physical health, the body, and fruition. The tools represent someone who creates from what they already have, not from what doesn't exist. So while the magician does pull on the magic and power from the cosmos, he doesn't solely rely on that energy to get him what he needs. We can also see that there are elements found in the carvings on this table, being that there is a dove, some waves, as well as some mountains. So now that you understand the symbolism within this card, let's go ahead and explore the elements. As mentioned before, we can see all four elements within this card, but it is governed by earth and air. Earth represents a nurturing energy, a grounding energy, stability, and support. Air represents intellect, communication, ideas, and connection. Fire represents creation, destruction, passion, and desire. Water represents fluidity, adaptability, intuition, and emotion. So now that you understand the evolution of this card, how it's developed into what it's known as today, you also understand the numerology, the elements within the card, as well as all of the symbols and what they mean. Let's dive into interpreting this card and bringing it to life in your readings. When doing a reading, it is always important, no matter what card you're interpreting, to listen to your intuition. That, above all else, will make you a great reader. There are a few things to consider when interpreting this card or any card within the tarot. First, you want to consider the topic, the context, or the question of the reading. You'll also need to take into account what the surrounding cards are. And depending on how you read, you may want to consider where the magician is pointing. If you pull cards that go above the magician card, what is he pointing towards? Also, what is he pointing downwards to? You'll also want to take a look at and think about what is the magician representing in your reading. Is it a person, place, thing, or energy? So here are some personal examples of interpreting this card. When doing a past, present, future spread, and the magician lands in the past position, it would likely represent something that has happened for a divine reason, someone who created something or who began a new cycle and invested in it deeply. It could also represent someone who has manipulated a situation or group of people to get ahead. They likely created an environment of toxicity and rigidness and let their ego run wild. If landing in the present position, it would likely mean that you're being asked to start a new cycle, lean into manifestations, embrace spirituality to get your physical desires. It could represent somebody who is gifted spiritually and will manifest a lot of things in their lifetime. However, it could also represent someone who is trying too hard to control a situation or another person. Someone stuck in a negative cycle that keeps repeating the same mistakes. If in the future position, it could likely indicate a manifestation is to come, a sign that you will be creating something new or experiencing a spiritual or magical moment. It could also indicate a bit of a warning that you're creating something for the wrong reasons. Toxicity and ego drive the cycle that you're perpetuating into the future. As a single card reading, it really just depends on what you're asking about. As a person, the magician represents a person who is gifted spiritually and magically. They are a natural born leader, but may not choose that path for themselves. It's likely someone who does not view the world in black and white. They are an old soul, likely ruled by Mercury, or someone dealing with Mercury energy. They could be toxic or actively engaging in toxic cycles. They are overall very powerful. Consider the archetype and the person that you're reading for, as well as your intuition, to narrow down the traits that this magician is representing. As an environment, it represents a place that is both creative and magical. For example, if it's coming out as a response to the question, how will the environment in my new workplace be? It would symbolize an environment that pushes individuals to embrace their unique talents. It would likely require a sense of leadership or self-direction. The workplace would encourage creativity and imagination. But on the flip side, it could represent a workplace that is toxic, controlling, limiting, and has an attitude of my way or the highway. As an energy, the magician represents creative flow, passion, purity, balance, spiritual connection, and momentum. Or it could represent toxicity, disconnectedness, control, restriction, and disbelief. If the magician is surrounded by pentacles, it would likely indicate a manifestation to come true. Involving your physical health or financial desires, it would come to you as a result of working with the universe. On the flip side, it could indicate a lack of groundedness or too much control and restriction coming from an unbalanced place within. It could also represent advice for how to recover from physical hardships. Here are a few examples of the magician surrounded by different pentacles cards. When the magician is surrounded by swords, it likely represents good creative ideas. You will need to exert more leadership and structure surrounding your ideas so that you can get your desires. It could indicate encouragement towards your desires and finding a clear strategy that works for you. Or it could indicate mental obstacles getting in the way of your desires and your dreams. Less control and ego-driven action should be taken. Don't overthink a good thing. Here are some examples of the magician surrounded by different swords cards. When the magician is surrounded by cups cards, it indicates emotional fulfillment surrounding a current creative process. It likely represents a manifestation that is coming to you as a result of you trusting the process. It could indicate advice to be mindful, balanced, and to take your time. Or it could indicate emotional stuckness, a deep feeling of insecurity, untapped potential, and restlessness. Here are some examples of the magician surrounded by different cups cards. When the magician is surrounded by wands, it indicates lots of action that is needed or being currently taken towards creating something. It also represents clear and stable spiritual connection that allows confidence while working towards your desires. There's lots of passion and a feeling of purpose surrounding your current situation. Or it could represent idleness, restlessness, taking action for the wrong reasons, or just going through the motions to get what you want. There could be a definite lack of passion and connection to your current situation. Here are some examples of the magician surrounded by different wands cards. If the magician is surrounded by encouraging cards, it would indicate a certain permission or blessing from the universe. It could also represent advice on how to navigate a creative project. It is a sure sign that you're fully connected to your power, and as a result, you're creating, attracting, and developing your heart's desires. Here are some different examples. When surrounded by limiting cards, this would likely represent a toxic environment. It could represent toxic behavior, limiting beliefs, obstacles to work through, power going to your head, unbalanced focus, and unbalanced desires. It also could mean that you're putting others down in order to get ahead or to get what you want in life. Here are some examples. As I said in the last class, and as I will continue to say throughout this course, reading reversed cards is a personal decision. If you choose not to read reversed, it will not limit you in any shape or form as a reader. With that being said, if you choose to read reversed and the magician comes out that way, here are some keywords to keep in mind. Toxic, narcissistic, ego-driven, unbalanced, untapped potential, afraid, cowardice, destructive, passive-aggressive, manipulative, lack of passion, lack of love, and lack of purpose. So there you have it. That's the magician. I hope you all found this class insightful, uplifting, and encouraging for you to develop your own awareness and understanding and relationship with the magic of the magician. Next up, we're going to be focusing on the High Priestess. I love this card. I'm really excited to dive into it with you guys and to help you guys continue to develop your understanding of tarot. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting me and my channel. I put a lot of love and effort into these classes, and I hope that you guys thoroughly enjoy them. Let me know in the comments if you did enjoy today's lesson and what you're looking forward to throughout the series of this tarot course. If you have any questions or personal interpretations or thoughts to add into the conversation of the magician, feel free to comment. I will do my best to answer any questions that you guys might have. So thanks again for being here. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Blessed be.